On the third floor, time is growing short, and Captain Fritz makes one more attempt to shake Oswald's story. Lee, why did you go to Irving to visit your wife on Thursday night instead of Friday like you normally did? The homicide chief asks. I learned that my wife and Mrs. Payne were giving a party for the kids, Oswald tells him, and that they were going to have a house full of neighborhood kids there. I just didn't want to be around then, so I went out Thursday night. Did you bring a sack with you the next morning? I did, Oswald says. What was in the sack? Fritz asks. My lunch. How big of a sack was it? Fritz asks. What was its shape? I don't recall, Oswald replies, tiring of the cat-and-mouse game. It may have been a small sack or a large sack, I don't know. You don't always find one that fits your sandwiches just right. Where did you put the sack when you got in Wesley's car? Fritz questions. In my lap, Oswald says. Or possibly on the front seat next to me. That's where I always put it because I don't want it to get crushed. You didn't put it in the back seat? Fritz asks. I didn't put any package in the back seat, Oswald says vehemently. Wesley Fraser says that you brought a long parcel over to his house and put it in the back seat of his car, Fritz tells him. Do you deny that? Oh, he must be mistaken, Oswald claims, or else thinking about some other time when he picked me up. Didn't you tell him you had curtain rods? Fritz asked. Absolutely not, Oswald snaps. I never said such a thing. Captain Fritz asks Oswald again where he was at the time of the shooting. When lunchtime came, Oswald says, one of the Negro employees invited me to eat lunch with him, and I said, you go on down and send the elevator back up, and I'll join you in a few minutes. Oswald said that before he could finish what he was doing, all the commotion surrounding the assassination took place, so he said, I just went on downstairs to see what it was all about. On the way, he says, he stopped to get a Coke, and before he could proceed on his way out of the building, a police officer stopped him to ask some questions, but, quote, my superintendent stepped up and told the officer that I'm one of the employees of the building, so he told me to step aside for a little bit and we'll get you out later. Then I just went out the front door and into the crowd to see what it was all about. Postal Inspector Holmes notices that Oswald didn't say what floor he was on at the time of the shooting or whether he had taken the elevator or stairs down. He also wonders why Oswald left the scene and how he got away, but figures that Fritz had covered these areas in a previous session. What Holmes doesn't realize is that Oswald, like thousands of guilty people before him who incriminate themselves by telling inconsistent stories, has changed his story significantly. Through the Venetian blinds, Captain Fritz can see Chief Curry milling about impatiently in the outer office. Finally, the chief raps lightly on the door and opens it a crack. We'll be through in a few minutes, Fritz tells him. Curry closes the door and the questioning continues, with Dallas Secret Service agent in charge, Forrest Sorrells, and Fritz returning one final time to Oswald's use of the name A. Hiddell at his post office box in New Orleans and elsewhere. Now, you say that you have not used the name A. Hiddell, Sorrell says, but you show the name on this change of address card as a person entitled to receive mail at this address. If you don't know anyone by the name Hiddell, why would you have that name on this card? I never used the name of Hiddell, Oswald says, dodging the issue. The door to Fritz's office opens again, and this time Chief Curry steps inside. Although no words are spoken, it's clear that he wants the interrogation to come to an end. But Captain Fritz, following up on Sorrell's question, once again asks Oswald, Lee, do you know anyone by the name of A.J. Hiddell? No, Oswald says. Have you ever used that name as an alias? Fritz presses. No, Oswald insists. I never used the name, and I don't know anyone by that name. What about the selective service card we got out of your wallet showing the name A.J. Hiddell? Fritz fires back. Oswald boils over. I've told you all I'm going to about that card, Oswald flares. You took notes. Just read them for yourselves if you want to refresh your memory. You know as much about it as I do. That's it. There'll be no more from Oswald, at least until after the transfer. Both Fritz and Sorrells plan to question Oswald further in the days ahead. Captain Fritz and Chief Curry huddle briefly, whispering in hushed tones, then step out into the outer office to confer in private. Secret Service Inspector Kelly tells Oswald that the Secret Service is responsible for the safety of the President, and that as soon as he has secured counsel, the Secret Service is very anxious to talk with him to make sure that the correct facts are being developed regarding the assassination. I would be glad to discuss your proposition with my attorney, Oswald says, and after I have talked with one, you can discuss it with me or my attorney, if my attorney thinks that is a wise thing to do. But at the present time, I have nothing more to say.